Here we go.
The water cycle takes the water and moves it up and down and all around the earth. The water cycle takes the water and moves it up and down and all around the earth. The water cycle takes the water and moves it up and down and all around the earth. The water cycle takes the water and moves it up and down and all around the earth.
Hey kids, guess what we're going to be learning about today? This is Mr. Collins. We've got learning target 38, the water cycle. We are going to follow a water molecule through the water cycle. Some terms that we're going to be learning about today in this little session of notes is precipitation, evaporation, condensation, transpiration, infiltration, runoff, and groundwater. Some of those words are probably fairly familiar to you. I know my daughters learned a little bit about the water cycle, I believe in first or second grade. So we're going to take this just a little bit further today and have a little bit of a refresher course. As we look at the Earth from outer space and we look at the water and we look at the land, what percentage of Earth do you believe is covered with water? Well, if you said 75% or close to 75%, give yourself a sticker. About 75% of Earth's surface is covered with water, the other 25% being land. Where do we find that water? Well, we've got it in oceans. We find some of that water in lakes. A little bit of that water is in rivers. Some would be in wetlands. We've got some of it trapped in glaciers. And something that's often overlooked is those little fluffy clouds in the sky. Little tidbit of information for you. The average size cloud has the same mass as about 10 elephants. Groundwater is another place where water can be stored. Some water stored inside the earth is groundwater. Groundwater is water that collects and is stored underground. So here we see some water that has been stored underground. Quick little 30-second video for you about groundwater.
We all know the Earth is full of water, but there's a lot more to water than all that blue stuff you see on the globe. The water we can see on the surface of the Earth is surface water. Surface water is every lake, pond, river, stream, and ocean on Earth. But in the ground below your feet, there's even more water, groundwater. Groundwater is water that's crammed in the tiny gaps between rocks, soils, and sediments under the ground.
The water cycle, you see, water on Earth moves through a water cycle. Similar to a rock cycle where we had igneous, sedimentary, and metamorphic rocks, and we have this process that never ends. There is no beginnings or endings to a cycle. It's just a continuous process. Same goes with our water cycle. Now, these little molecules of the water cycle can follow different paths. They don't have to follow the same paths every time. What we are going to be learning about are 6 major steps of the water cycle. And in fact, all 6 are labeled on this diagram here. Evaporation, condensation, precipitation, infiltration, runoff, transpiration. The water cycle is the movement of water through the environment of the Earth. One step of the water cycle is called precipitation, which I'm sure you've heard of before. Precipitation is solid or liquid water that falls to the earth from clouds. There are 4 major types of precipitation: rain, which I'm sure you've heard of, snow, hail, and this is trying to show us sleet. Precipitation is any form of water, whether it's solid or liquid, that falls from the clouds. Evaporation is when liquid water changes from a liquid to a gas. The sun provides energy that heats up the molecules, makes them expand and become water vapor. Condensation is when that water vapor, as a gas in the atmosphere, becomes a liquid. So those three steps are the three major steps of the water cycle: evaporation, condensation, precipitation. But we also have these three other parts of the water cycle that we're going to be covering. The first one is called transpiration. Transpiration, I like to think of it as plant sweat. Transpiration is the evaporation of water through plants. Some people like to think of it as TR. Transpiration starts with a TR. Trees starts with a TR. Transpiration, trees. How this works is water soaks up through the soil, but how it gets all the way up to the leaves is through this transpiration. Water evaporates out of the plants, and as it evaporates out, it sucks more water up the roots into the leaves. Evaporation, in this case, transpiration. Infiltration is liquid that soaks into the surface of the earth. Runoff, on the other hand, is if it doesn't have enough time to soak into the surface of the earth, or if there's different types of soils that don't allow it to soak into the earth, runoff will occur. This is the movement of excess water over the surface of the earth. What you're going to do now is make sure you go back to that Google Classroom and you want to go to the summary questions. Here are 3 summary questions. What is groundwater? How are evaporation and transpiration similar? How are they different? How are infiltration and runoff similar? And how are they different? If you're interested, here's a lovely little song about the water cycle.
The water cycle goes round and round. Rain falls in the clouds. Evaporation, precipitation, condensation, runoff to anything for me and you. Then it's gone. Then it's gone. It goes back up in the sky. You will see it when it's here. You will see it here and there. Oh, you're gonna miss it when it's gone. The water cycle goes round and round. The rain forms in the clouds. Evaporation, precipitation, condensation, runoff to and it falls on me and you. When it's gone, when it's gone, it goes back up in the sky. You will see it on the ground. You will see it all around. Oh, you're gonna miss it when it's gone. The water cycle is key to life. Without it, we would die. Without water, keep it flowing, whether it's rain, sleet, or snowing. It goes back up in the sky. Oh my God!
All righty, have a great day, everybody.